Welcome. I'm County Executive Joe Parisi, and this is the Dane County Podcast. And today is the inaugural launch of the Dane County Podcast. This is a show that we're going to do monthly to talk about all the different things that we do within county government. There are a lot of things that are going on every day that folks just aren't familiar with. So we thought it would be a great idea to do this podcast to make sure people stay informed and they know what their local government is up to. And today I'm really excited to have as our first guest the director of the Dane County Office of Energy and Climate Change, Kathy Kuntz. Before we get into Kathy's background, I'll just say a couple of things about why we developed this office and what it does and some of the things that it's involved in at this point in time. So a few years back, we decided that it was important that we double down on our efforts to address climate change locally, both internally in Dane County government and community-wide. And this is a priority for us, so we decided to actually create an entire office within the county exec's office to address this issue. And the office is in charge of all aspects of our work, overseeing our internal work, but as important or more importantly, reaching out to the community and coordinating efforts and developing different tools with the community to help people reach the goals that we have set. And Kathy will talk a little bit about that as we go on, the goals and the goal setting process over the past few years for addressing this crisis. I'm really excited about this office and the work that Kathy and her team are doing, because what we find at the end of the day is there is so much that can be done to address climate change. Sometimes this feels a little overwhelming, but we hope that you'll leave today's conversation feeling a little more empowered and inspired, knowing that there's a lot we can do to address the climate crisis locally, and that when we do it locally, it spreads from there. So Kathy, welcome.
Thanks. It's great to be here with you.
Yeah, it's so great to have you on this inaugural episode. So Kathy comes to Dane County from a long career in sustainability. We're incredibly fortunate to have her at the helm of the office. She has led a number of organizations. She led Wisconsin's Focus on Energy, the premier energy efficiency and renewable agency. And then she also headed probably the coolest name agency that I've ever seen, a place called Cool Choices, working to address the climate crisis and sustainability. That's just the tip of the iceberg of her resume. We're so happy to have her here as the director of the Office of Energy and Climate Change, and look forward to the conversation we're going to have today. Dane County's journey into addressing the climate crisis has been picking up steam and momentum in a big way over the last few years. But really, our efforts date back, about a decade. A lot of environmental work before that, but really focusing on climate work almost a decade ago was our starting point. We reached a partnership, engaged in a partnership with the university, asked them to do an assessment of how climate change was going to impact us locally, because we certainly see the global impacts of it, from forest fires to flooding to increased storms. And we see a lot of that here now, too. Certainly a few years ago with the flooding we had, we're seeing changes in our weather as well. So we have to look at it from a couple of standpoints. First of all, what do we have to do to prepare for the changes that are here and that are inevitable, as far as emergency management and response and dealing with flooding and some of the social impacts of climate change. So that's an exercise that we've been going through with all of our county departments and preparing for the future and how to deal with that. Everything from how we build roads and where we build them, if they're in an area that's likely to be flooded, to more emergency equipment for the sheriff's department and others to deal with situations in which flooding occurs, like we saw in 2018. The piece of this that I get really excited about, and that we can make a lot of progress on and have been, is on our efforts to reduce CO2 and CO2 equivalent emissions that are causing climate change. The county, we believe that it's important to lead by example. So we began by looking inward, and a number of years back began committing a couple $1 million a year to energy efficiency. We assessed all of our county facilities for their efficiency and for the opportunity to employ renewable resources. And as of today, we have about 17 facilities in county government that have solar panels on them. We'll talk a little bit more when we get into the conversation with Kathy about the details of some of those exciting projects. We've tackled the transportation side. We take we take the methane gas that is a waste product from our landfill, and we clean it and compress it and run county vehicles on it. And, we've been electrifying our fleet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're at a point now where we are close after our final solar project that's on the books for this year. We will be offsetting 100% of our electricity with renewable energy. So we're really excited about that and about our new goals toward carbon sequestration. So once we got on the path and got the momentum going internally, we decided it was time to look to the exterior, to look to the community, to see how we could help not only other local units of government, but folks throughout the community come together to do our part to tackle climate change. And that's where Kathy and her team come in a big way. They worked to develop something called our Climate Action Plan, which is a plan for the entire community. And Kathy, maybe that'd be a good place to start. Maybe we could talk a little bit about that plan and how it came together and what that means for folks.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks. So Dane County's Climate Action Plan was really built from the community. I mean, it was a real unprecedented effort through our office. The first director of our office, Keith Riopel, worked with you to assemble 38 constituencies to work on that plan. So we had local government there, we had utilities, we had environmental organizations and labor and farmers all coming together, looking at the science and thinking about what can happen. And, you set a really important tone for the Climate Action Plan. At the very first meeting of the council, you said, this is about the art of the possible. Don't spend your time complaining about what the feds aren't doing or what some other body should do. What can we do as Dane County? And as a result, we ended up with a plan that is really pragmatic. I mean, we're a county government, so there are things we don't have authority to tell people to do. But the plan really reflects where we do have the ability to influence change, that we can bring local governments together and help them lead by example, that we can recognize leadership in businesses in ways that inspire other businesses. And all of that, all of those possible things put us on a path. Maybe the other important thing to say about the Climate Action Plan is thanks to Keith's connections, we worked with world-class climate modelers. So they helped us create a baseline of countywide emissions in 2017. So in 2017, in Dane County, we produced about 7.5 million metric tons of carbon equivalents. And then as we developed those recommendations of what we could do, the modelers helped us look at how those would impact our emissions. So we have a climate action plan with very tangible benchmarks that puts us on a path to cutting countywide emissions in half by 2030, which is exactly consistent with what the climate scientists, with what the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change says needs to happen. So whereas some folks might have a goal but no real plan to get there, we have a plan that can get us exactly where we need to go on this, which is, again, really exciting to have.
Yeah, and I think, Kathy, a couple of things that stand out to me about the plan is, first of all, the title, the Climate Action Plan. As you said, we didn't want a report that's going to sit on the shelf. We want actionable items, because what we've found through this process is that there are so many people throughout our community who want to make a difference and who want to deal with the climate crisis, but aren't necessarily sure where to start and how to do it. But by bringing people together to develop this plan and creating this blueprint, you have created a place for people to come and start making those connections and get the information from other people. And we know there are projects already that have happened because of the networking alone that this climate action plan development created. We know that that job pipelines with community-based organizations and solar installers have already been formed because of this work. And so, I don't know, Kathy, if you have any examples that you'd like to share of tangible results that we've already accomplished and that other people could accomplish as well, and we're happy to help them get there.
Yeah, sure. So just as you say that, one of maybe our favorite examples is while we were creating the climate action plan, when we brought these stakeholders together, partnerships flourished between them. So the Urban League of Greater Madison runs a program where they provide job training in the construction trades, and their target audience is mostly formerly incarcerated folks. So they're trying to turn their lives around and get a job. Well, our solar industry is often in a place where they really need those entry-level construction workers. So at one meeting of the Climate Council, the Urban League representative was talking about this program he runs, and one of our solar installers, Sunpeak, said, "Hey, sign us up." And in the subsequent time, Sunpeak has hired more than a dozen people from that program who are now, doing jobs that they can show to their families as this is really cool. I helped install the solar on that facility. So that's where that connection is happening. I think the other example I think about is how work in our communities is inspiring more things in our communities. So we're lucky enough in the Oregon School District to have the first net zero energy school in Wisconsin. It's the largest net zero energy school in North America at this point. So all of the heating and cooling happens through a geothermal heat pump system. It's got solar on site that powers all of that. And it really demonstrated to our local communities what's possible. Today, in the village of McFarland, you've got a net zero public safety building going up because they saw this was possible. They did the math. They thought about the future and said, hey, this is what we want to do too. And we're seeing more and more of those conversations, because if we can bring people together and sort of share what's possible, they can go further down that path faster because they didn't have to figure all the first stuff out themselves. And so that's, I think, one of the most important things our office can do is make those connections between different groups so that they go further faster.
Yeah, we talk about a lot, Kathy, and those are such great examples of the fact that doing energy correctly can answer so many of the challenges that our society faces today. Because face it, right now we do energy wrong. Our world, I remember, I'm aging myself here, in the late 70s during the first, quote, energy crisis, when we learned the dangers of relying upon fossil fuels from other parts of the world. And fast forward to today, and we're still there. We have the IPCC saying, you need to address climate change, and you need to start yesterday. This is no more something you have to do in 10 years. We have a war occurring as we speak in the Ukraine, and the perpetrator of that war is funding that war in part by folks still having to purchase fossil fuels from them. There are so many challenges brought about by our addiction on fossil fuels. We look at the examples that you just gave of a school district and a local unit of government, not necessarily units of government that are flush with cash right now, too. I mean, when's the last time you heard a school district say, gosh, we have so much extra money we don't know what to do with? No, it's quite the opposite. They face dwindling resources. So when you're in a situation where you have a limited amount of money and you're delivering services, why would you continue to send what few dollars you have out the window to other countries and other states to purchase fossil fuels? You might as well just light the dollar bill on fire and watch the smoke fly out the window, because you get nothing in return for that. But those two examples you just gave of a school district and a local government who are net zero, all of the money that they're saving by not having to purchase energy every month can go into the services they're providing for the community and for children. and for tax relief. When you look at the jobs that are created, I like to use the example of our solar field that we partnered to build with Madison Gas and Electric out at our airport. That solar field was built during the height of the pandemic, initially before the vaccines were out, when people were losing jobs, we were in a recession. Well, this was outside, so it was being built and worked on. So instead of sending those dollars out of the state to buy coal somewhere, we were employing local workers who built those solar panels, and then they were taking those dollars and spending them in the community. And once that solar system was up, by the way, it began supplying 40% of county government's electricity needs and saving us over $100,000 a year in taxpayer dollars on our electric bill. So there are so many solutions, from the environment to jobs to local businesses, to being able to provide public services if we just do energy right. And that's one of the reasons I get so excited about energy and renewables, because the answer to so many of society's challenges are there if we do this right.
Yeah, definitely. And just to kind of reiterate that jobs piece, when we're talking about energy efficiency and renewable energy installations, those are all local jobs that stay local.
Yeah.
Nobody can export the making your home more energy efficient to some other country. I mean, these are always going to be family supporting jobs here in our communities. And so I think there is so much economic win in addition to the environmental win and the public health win, that yes, this just all really makes sense, but it's changing how we do things. So there's still that effort of kind of how do we make that change happen? And certainly that's a big piece of what our focus is. How do we make it easier for people to do things? One of the things we've been doing to make it easier is collaborating with different stakeholder groups. My favorite example, because it's so Dane County born, is Wisconsin Creation Care Ambassadors, which is a group of local folks who have been involved in sustainability efforts in their own faith community. And through the course of a couple of conversations with our office, they got inspired to help other faith communities. So they've set up a website, and they're if your church or synagogue or temple or mosque wants to go green, these are folks who can tell you about how they financed it at their facility, how they got people involved. And it's just such is, it's the essence of who we are in Dane County, that these folks are now not only helping their own faith communities, but using what experience they gain to help other faith communities make these changes too. And it's that kind of stuff that I think is so exciting about our work, that people are so focused on solutions and where they can bring those solutions to bear.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we've both talked about now, we believe in being as practical, hands-on, see what we can accomplish as possible. And one of the programs that Kathy and I always like to give a shout out to, and people can always, we'll give some information at the end of the podcast about how to reach Kathy, because we're always happy to get more information on this. So I'll just give a brief kind of 30,000 feet. There's a program with the acronym PACE, which is Property Assessed Clean Energy. And this is a lending program that's available to businesses and nonprofits who own their buildings. So that's where the faith community efforts come in as well. And so for example, I'm a small business owner, and I'm making widgets, and my electric bill is $600 a month for making those widgets. Under the PACE program, I am eligible to receive a no money out of pocket loan to increase the efficiency and install renewables on my factory with a positive cash flow from the beginning. So what that means is, say I want to do this. I want to do efficiency. I want to do renewables. But it's like, how am I going to pay for this? How am I going to get a loan for this and a down payment? With PACE, you don't need the down payment. And let's say that the upgrades save you $400 a month on your electric bill. you have the option of structuring that loan to be that exact 400 that you're saving, or potentially even less. Structure it for 350. So from the start, with no money out of pocket, not only do you get this upgrade to your building, not only are you polluting less and helping the climate change in our climate change challenge, but you are saving money on your energy bill until that loan is paid off, and then you receive the entire benefit of whatever you're saving. Say it's $400 a month. So this is really no risk, because we know exactly how much you're going to save from the upgrades. No money out of pocket, and no money out of your pocket for the payments. So the question becomes rather than should I do this, to why aren't I doing this? And that's just one example of different ways we try to connect people with the knowledge and of how to do the things that they'd like to do and can benefit from.
Definitely. The PACE program is such a good resource. And a piece of that, structuring a PACE loan, is the business owner in your example gets verification about the savings they're going to anticipate. I think sometimes this barrier for folks is, well, a vendor told me I might save this, but how do I know if this is true? And going through that financing process, there is independent verification that, yeah, these are the savings you're going to realize, which can be, that by itself can have a really big value to a business who's trying to figure out what's the best thing for me to do to be part of the solution.
And that business owner would probably qualify for one of our climate champion recognitions also, which definitely helps a business to be able to let folks know that they're environmentally friendly and they've been recognized for it. Kathy, one of the things I like to tell people about too, and I alluded to it a little bit earlier on, is our transportation approach in Dane County government. As most folks know, again, we have a landfill, and landfills are a big source of greenhouse gases, specifically methane, which is an extremely powerful and potent greenhouse gas, 25 times or more powerful, depending on who you talk to, than CO2. And it also holds great opportunity because it is shorter lived in the environment. So any reductions we can get in methane help us reach our initial goals of carbon and carbon equivalency reduction sooner. So methane comes from rotting food, anaerobic rotting in landfills. It leaks out, it can explode, and most landfills have to flare it off. Well, my predecessor, Kathleen Falk, had the insight many years ago to start drilling wells to extract that methane before it leaks out and burning it to generate electricity. So she was generating renewable electricity from a waste product, over a decade ago. Well, as clean energy has become less and less expensive in the form of solar and wind power, which is good news, the energy we were generating at the landfill became so expensive that the utilities didn't want to buy it anymore because they could get, cheaper renewable energy. So we had to figure something out, both, from the greenhouse gas standpoint and from the fiscal standpoint, because we were bringing in about $1 million a year from selling that electricity, but that was going to, go out the window soon. So what we've done is we built a facility at our landfill that cost $28 million. And this was the first of its kind for a local government to do in the nation. So we took a little bit of a risk, but when we looked at the proposal, the facilities, and the numbers, we decided it was worth it. And that facility now takes the methane, cleans it and compresses it, and turns it into compressed renewable natural gas that is the cleanest vehicle fuel available, unless you're using electric, generated 100% by solar. And what we've been doing over the years is as our vehicles age out, we're replacing them, some of our bigger trucks and bigger vehicles, with vehicles that run on compressed natural gas. So we are now up to, and I just got the updated number, Kathy, recently, we're up to 100 vehicles of the county fleet now running on compressed natural gas, about half of our highway fleet. So when you see those big orange snow plows and county highway trucks, we're up to about half of those now that are running on the gas that was generated, from that banana peel you threw away last month that rotted in the landfill, and we captured that methane and turned it into fuel. So not only are we having a huge impact on greenhouse gas reduction, we're also saving county taxpayers a bunch of money in two ways. The gas cost us the equivalent of about $1.50 a gallon to fuel our vehicles, and those big highway trucks don't get good gas mileage. So when we're seeing gasoline and diesel, $4 a gallon and more, we're paying $1.50 a gallon right now for that. So we're saving county taxpayers there while replacing dirty burning diesel. We also sell what we don't use to Quick Trip, a Wisconsin company that a lot of folks are familiar with. And then in addition to that, we are able to sell something called renewable energy credits through the kind of California national cap and trade system to generate more dollars, so that we are recouping millions of dollars a year from the sale of that natural gas, taking what other people see as a waste product. Most landfills just flare it off, and we're doing the right thing by the taxpayer and the right thing by the environment. And so what our goal is, and Kathy's goal is to share what we're doing with local governments across the state and across the county, because we want other people to know about this and to benefit as well. And I don't know, Kathy, if you have any, thoughts about some of our efforts to share technology, both locally and even beyond, just to help people, get an idea of what's possible who may want to do this stuff but aren't aware of it.
Yeah, definitely. We spend a fair amount of time talking to other local governments, talking to officials across Wisconsin, but also across the country, who are really interested in these things. The National Academy of Sciences profiled our landfill capture and CNG system in one of their solutions series, so there's national attention. Definitely you need to have John Welch and folks from Waste and Renewables on the pod, because they're doing amazing work. For all the listeners, you should definitely go to the Dane County landfill and take a tour. It's fascinating what you can see, and in terms of just seeing the very high tech way we're ensuring that we capture that methane. I mean, it made me so proud to live in Dane County, to go out and see that system up close. But yeah, we spend a fair amount of time trying to help other, the local governments in particular, try to figure out, how do we do these things? We talk to folks about you mentioned the solar project at the airport. Airports often have land that you can't develop. They're perfect for solar projects. We did one in conjunction with our local utility, with MG&E. We're encouraging other folks to think about those kind of projects at their airports. These are all projects that are, again, we think about results. These are things that people can do right now, that the math makes sense, that there are benefits, there are jobs benefits, there are clean energy benefits. Let's get it done.
Yeah, so if you're in a local government, give us a call. We're happy to help. If you live somewhere outside of Dane County and want your government to get involved, urge them to get involved and look at some of the things we're doing. We're always happy to help and to share what we know. And so I think, maybe kind of in closing, Kathy, maybe we'll talk about kind of our next goal and kind of the final frontier. I don't know if it'll be the final frontier, knowing us, because we're never, once we reach one goal, we set another. But we're doing a couple of things. As much work as we've done on efficiency and renewables, this year we're undergoing yet another check and an audit of our energy efficiency and opportunities throughout Dane County facilities, because it's been a while since we did our last one. And one of the exciting things about this is the technology is changing so quickly and getting so much better and so much more affordable. So we're going to continue to see how we can do even better. But then our latest goal, I won't say our finest goal, our latest goal now that we are about to reach our offset for electricity and be 100% renewable, is we have a new carbon neutrality goal to be carbon neutral by 2025. And we will achieve this in a number of ways through all the things and more that we've been talking about as far as efficiency and renewables. But we will also work toward carbon sequestration, and carbon sequestration in the best way, which is the natural way, by restoration of prairies and conservation of lands, and by planting trees, native trees, I will say. One of the things that we always talk about, when we hear people saying, we're going to plant 1 million trees or we're going to plant 20 trees, folks, remember the benefits and the importance of making sure those trees that are planted are native to the area, because there are a lot of negative impacts if you do that the wrong way, because they're adapted to our climate. They know how to survive in our climate, and all the little critters that depend on them are adapted to them too. So our carbon sequestration is pretty exciting, and this is one of the benefits of being a unit of government that has such a committed staff and such a great focus on conservation. Our Land and Water Resources Department, we've staffed up there with more folks to work on prairie restoration, work on logging the various data that we need to get to the carbon neutrality, and it's just another step that maybe some folks don't think about as important as all the other part is. Working with Mother Nature to sequester more of that carbon is important too. And Kathy, I don't know if you have any reflections on that program and how it fits into our overall efforts.
Yeah, I'm so excited about the work we're doing around carbon sequestration, and in part because it builds on work we were doing to mitigate flooding, to enhance kind of water quality. So Dane County has this long tradition of doing strategic land purchases and prairie restorations that help us mitigate the potential for flooding and help kind of improve water quality in our watersheds. And in reality, that work also increases carbon sequestration. And so what we're doing now is really just stepping back and making an accounting for all of that. And I think as we do that, we again can set models for other local governments who are maybe doing some piece of that and going, oh, there are actually multiple benefits from doing this, not just one. And so, yeah, that is a really exciting piece for us to start having that math rolling in about just how big those impacts are. And I think folks you often say, that people think about trees when you think about carbon sequestration. There's lots of discussion about planting trees, but prairies hold an enormous amount of carbon too. Prairie grass roots go deep, and this is creates very rich soil. And so it's really a combination of these things where they fit best that I think can help us be an example. So we've historically been an example about how we run heavy duty vehicles on renewable natural gas and how we get renewable electricity. And now we'll be able to be an example of how we can fit natural carbon sequestration into our efforts too. Yeah, it's terrific.
Yeah, Kathy, awesome. You make a really good point about the multiple benefits, because again, we talked about the multiple benefits that arise from efficiency and renewables, et cetera. When I think of the carbon sequestration piece, I think of the purchase we made of 160 acres, I believe it was, on the outskirts of Middleton in the town of Springfield a few years back. During the flooding, Middleton suffered severely. They had, a lot of folks did, definitely, a lot of different places, Mazamani, et cetera. Middleton saw severe washouts of the Pheasant Branch Creek area. They saw significant flooding. And one of the areas this happened was right at where Middleton and the town of Springfield meet. And there was a 160-acre parcel right there that went up for sale, and it had been farmed. And it was slated for residential development. And that concerned us for a couple of reasons. First of all, the flooding aspect. If you filled that area up with houses, that would be hundreds of millions of more gallons that would be rushing into Pheasant Branch, or the Hara there in Pheasant Branch, during a heavy rain event. We were also concerned, just from a land use perspective. So we purchased that 160-acre farm, and we are just about finished with the restoration. The farm came down We're restoring the prairies. We've restored and are restoring the wetland. So this will be a huge carbon sink when we look at carbon sequestration. This will also, as I mentioned, prevent hundreds of millions of gallons of water from rushing into the river at that point and into the lake and help us with flooding. It will also help us with our phosphorus reduction efforts to reduce runoff of nutrients that causes algae growth into our chain of lakes, because now rather than there being farmland right there in kind of a vulnerable spot, it will be prairie and wetland, which will absorb those nutrients, prevent the runoff, keep the soil together. And it also provides an incredible opportunity for recreation and pollinator habitat, and on and on and on. So there's so much good that can come from doing the right thing for our quality of life in so many ways. So, Kathy, thank you so much for joining me today. This, as you know, I'm so excited about your work and your department and your office and all the good things that are going on. Anyone out there who would like to get a hold of us, feel free. Kathy, I don't know if there's information for your website or what the best way for people to find out more about
our
you is.
website is really easy, daneclimateaction.org. Yeah.
Excellent. So go to daneclimateaction.org and see what Kathy has to say. Please feel free to reach out to us, whether you are in a local government or you are a resident who's interested in how you can get involved and what you can do. If you're part of a faith community that might want to be doing an upgrade, if you own a business and you want to save some money and help the environment at the same time, reach out to us, because there's so much that can be done. Again, the climate crisis can feel overwhelming, but once you find a group of folks who are interested in making a difference and want to make a difference and can share know-how, it's incredibly empowering, and I guarantee you we can and will make a difference. So thanks again, Kathy. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. And we'll see you on our next Dane County podcast. Take care.